So you found your Mr. Right, parents have approved, your family is buzzing with excitement, and preparations are being made for your wedding day. What guidelines are there within Islam around the Nikaah, also known as the marriage contract? What are the do's and don'ts? Stay with us for this discussion on Women's AM. Bismillah, assalamu alaikum, my beautiful sisters in Islam, and welcome to Women's AM. Once again, you're joining us here live from our London studios to bring you news, discussion, tips and much more. In today's show, we have a roundup of the day's stories of interest in News Bites. It's the second of our marriage series today, and in her views, we'll be talking about the all-important wedding contract, the Nikaah. And in our final segment of the morning, we'll be reviewing some great products. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm Liz, I'm your host, and joining me on the panel today we have sisters Hassana and Nazia. Assalamu alaikum, sisters.
Walaikum salam.
How are you this morning?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. And we're also very fortunate to have with us Sister Khafaya Abdul Salam. Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Salam. How
are you this morning?
I'm fine, alhamdulillah, and you?
Alhamdulillah, very well. Jazakallah for joining us once again on the show. It's lovely to have you here.
Proud to be here.
Alhamdulillah. You know, when coming into the show this morning, you know, looking forward to seeing you as always, and you know, thinking about the kind of many hats that you wear, professionally speaking.
Thank you.
And it got me thinking about the first thing that I ever wanted to do as a child, the first job I ever dreamed of becoming. And I thought, I wonder what my fellow panellists dreamed of becoming when they were children. So I'm going to start with Hassana.
It's slightly bizarre. I always wanted to be an astronaut. I was like absolutely convinced I was going to go up into space, and I'm not going to tell you about the crazy outfits that I used to kind of put myself in to pretend to be an astronaut, but I was really obsessed with space and space, you know, travel and things like that. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I wish I had something half as exciting as that to share.
Yeah.
Sister Nazia, what about you?
I wanted to be an archaeologist.
Oh, that's lovely.
I just love the whole thing of going to, you know, because I used to read so much on, you know, the stories like Egypt and things like that, and just see the images like, I don't know why, my parents used to watch a lot of documentaries, and I guess that's why it sort of started on those sort of things, and I was looking at it thinking, wow, that'd be amazing to have to sort of dig around, look for all these artifacts.
Yeah.
I was just completely mesmerised by it all.
Yeah, it would have been such an exciting job to do, and you ended up becoming an architect. And Sister Faye, what about you?
Well, I started off wanting to be a pharmacist.
Wow.
Then, yeah, and I always wanted to be one. Did all my science subjects, no biology, chemistry. Looking forward to it until my dreams were dashed when I was told I had to dissect rats and deal with blood, and I thought, no, I'm not doing that. So.
You know what, that's so funny, isn't it? It's always the way these childhood dreams are so very often shattered by the adult realities of what that entails.
Exactly.
It's the same for me, and I always wanted to be a vet for many years. That was all I dreamed of becoming. And then I realised how much science I would have to study and how much work it would be, and I thought, no, maybe this isn't for me.
Try something else.
It's not all bad. I ended up a presenter on Islam Channel, so alhamdulillah. Well, that's all for catching up with the sisters. Now let's go straight to the first segment of the morning, which is News Bites. In this segment, we take a look at the day's stories of interest and we discuss what's been happening around the world. So, Sister Nazia, what's your first story?
Right, my first article is taken from The Telegraph. The new ambition, the generation redefining their careers, still trying to climb the corporate career ladder, how 20th century. For many young professionals, career success now means something different. So this is a really interesting article about a woman who, on the face of it, had everything. She had an amazing career, six-figure salary. She was an editor of a glossy magazine. So it's incredible to actually read her journey, that you would think with all of this, she would actually have been very happy with her life. Yeah. And actually what she's stating is that, no, she wasn't happy. She had all this time, you know, she had the money, but she had, as she put it, too little time for anything else. Yeah. And it actually made her kind of self-reflect upon coming to that point of what am I doing? Where am I going? What is this all about? And I think for me, when I was reading this article, it was that which jumped out.
Yeah.
And it just kind of pointed to the fact, you know, the natural fitra that every human being has to question what their purpose in life is. So this is like that step forward where she's actually now taking that step to evaluate what sometimes a lot of people, you know, there's some people that don't even do that. They may be sucked into their worldly responsibilities, they don't, and then they will continue that way until they die.
Yeah.
But this is actually to be able to take that step back and reevaluate your life, where you're heading. That's quite a huge thing.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of just reading her journey, she's now kind of moved forward in terms of, as you know, what she started off was, this was all expectations of what other people wanted of her. So now she's now moving towards her own expectations. But for me, this kind of points out, for, you know, as a Muslim, we understand that our purpose, we have the answer. We know what our purpose in life is. And it's defined around the whole worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it just reminded me of the ayah in Surah Hadid that, no, the life of this world is only play and amusement, pomp and mutual boasting among you, and rivalry in respect of wealth and children.
Yeah.
But the thing that actually brings you contentment with life is actually coming back to the point of knowing what your purpose in life is, and to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And actually that's when you will be truly self-contented, you know.
Yeah,
so,
I completely agree with the the points you've made, but it's so easy to kind of get sucked into this rat race, isn't it? I can really relate to you know, a lot of the points that were raised there. You do find yourself just constantly chasing these, you know, worldly goals, and it never ends up fulfilling you.
It doesn't satisfy you.
Yeah.
It doesn't satisfy you. It's like you're chasing a pipe dream, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it doesn't quite taste you know, you're never satisfied by it. So
yeah, no, absolutely. Hassan, I think your story is in a similar kind of vein, isn't it?
I was just thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
It's from the Huffington Post, and the headline is "Happiness is more important than money, say Brits in new survey. What do you think?" So this is according to a new survey by a charity, Action for Happiness, which said that a whopping 87% of us in the UK would choose happiness over money. And this is in contrast to what a lot of people think right now, is that people are chasing money. As Sister Nazia said, you know, that seems to be the kind of consensus, that everyone's very, very career-driven and individualistic. But actually, for a lot of us, when we're asked this question, what does happiness mean? It's not about the money. It's about your relationship with your family, with your partner, with those closest to you. And actually, a lot of people actually said health as well. So that's quite important to people too. And, you know, looking into this subject, I find it incredibly fascinating, this whole concept of happiness, because it's not often something we really think about. And the Action for Happiness director, Dr. Mark Williams, he said, the economy dominates our social discussions, but the survey shows that happiness is more important to people. We need to spend less time focusing on the size of the economy and more time focusing on how to help people live happy, healthy, fulfilling lives. I really like that idea of just kind of focusing on, it's a really positive outlook on things, and I think that's something that actually Islam teaches us, to have a really positive, optimistic outlook. And, you know, we know the Prophet ﷺ, he was an optimist, so that's something we should be trying to inculcate in our lives too. And it got me thinking about, like what Sister Nazia was saying, about this whole, you know, correlation between richness and actual happiness. And there's a really, you know, there's a saying which always hits me every time I hear it, and it's, some people are so poor, the only thing they have is money. And I thought, you know, that's so true. And it just really, it teaches us so much about the value of contentment. And it ties in with the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he says, richness is not in the quantity of possessions that one has, rather true richness is richness of oneself, or contentment. And that's what it comes down to. You know, if you have that contentment, honestly, the value of that is so much more than any kind of any material wealth or anything that you're earning at the end of the month. So, you know, there's so many different things about happiness in our deen, and we know that a part of happiness is being content with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed for you. That is what true happiness is. And as Sister Nazia said, you know, it's all about kind of being pleased with Allah as your Lord, and Islam as your deen, and as, you know, the Prophet ﷺ as your prophet. That's what it comes down to.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself.
True happiness there, alhamdulillah.
Sister Khafay, what do you think about this issue of financial success versus happiness?
I can say that because, you know, I started off being very career-driven. And I can relate to everything you're talking about, happiness. But what I realised is I did love my job because I worked as a payroll consultant. But eventually I thought, I'm not doing something that I have a passion for.
Right.
And I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
So I have a passion for the work that I do now, and I branched out into, and then money means nothing.
Yeah.
But I have a passion, and I feel very content now that I have a message to give out there, and I'm serving my community, and that's what gives me that happiness and contentment.
No, absolutely agree.
Because even in this article, the woman, that's what happened when she, it wasn't she was seeking promotion, her actual passion was to write, and in the whole process of promotion, she stopped writing.
Yeah.
She was editing other people's work.
Exactly, absolutely a valuable lesson there for us, I think. Sister Nazi, I think you've got another story for us.
The next article is taken from The Guardian. Oxford student of colour on being othered at university. So this is really interesting. Basically, nearly 70 students have so far posed for a project where they had pictures of them taken and they were holding placards.
Right.
And they were sort of like reenacting what this whole point of that they face a lot of discrimination in terms of on a day-to-day basis at university, a lot of stereotyping as well.
Yeah.
So they had these images of, like, for example, a sister in a hijab holding a placard. Yes, I am an international student, but it's almost just sort of say, but why should you question why I'm here? And similarly, there were other sort of like, just as an example. Comments that were said in passing, then why do you speak such good English? One particular person, but what is your African name? Oh, you are from Ghana. My cousin's nanny is from Kenya. A black female student, she said, she was said what was said to her was, oh, your parents must be so proud of you that you're here, like so proud, seriously. So it kind of points to there's this kind of atmosphere that exists, and actually it's really interesting for me. It just points out that often education is labelled as being the solution to the world's problems, but actually look, this is clearly at in an environment that you think there's intellectual enlightenment. But what is the thinking here? What's going on here? You've got a situation where when you look at the time of the Islamic history, we had Islamic institutions.
Absolutely.
And they if you look at the current universities, they're modelled upon those institutions. But what's different about them is the fact that as a society we were very inclusive. It was very you had people from all over the world that would come to these centres. So it didn't matter where you came from, what languages you spoke or whatever. It was an entitlement to education. That it was a right that you had, and the fact that colour didn't take a place, or where you came from, none of these things mattered. It was an entitlement to you. So this is just something that, it just made me think that there's so many hosts of issues, especially with women. You've got the issue of being from an ethnic minority background, but then on top of it, there are, I'm sure, additional factors that you being as a woman, there are so many prejudice added on to that. So
absolutely.
It just kind of makes you wonder that, we are facing a lot of issues out there, and trying to plough your way through it is not an easy thing, because ultimately it's not education that's going to fix the problem, it's the values of a society. That's what fixes it, because when you establish women have rights, the everyday person, everyone within the society has rights, that's what's going to lead to change, not just an educational institution as such. Education per se is not going to do that. It is going to come back to the way a society thinks. And then you'll be able to deal with these issues.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Sister Khafaya, what's your view on this story?
Again, it's just going back to what you're saying. It's just, again, thinking of the mindset of the people we have. And education doesn't necessarily mean, now I know that just like going through university, because we can see now that it's called the modern way of studying, or whatever that is, but now you can see that they've introduced these baccalaureates there, so people are doing other activities and kind of probably moving away from that. And again, these people, when you see Oxford and Cambridge students talking to other ethnic minorities like this, they think we don't have, probably back in these countries, the good education, but they do have it. They just probably come out to explore and, do something else.
No, absolutely.
So it's a shame that things like this are going on here.
It's a real shame. No, it's a real shame. But, definitely some really interesting stories there, and some really interesting issues highlighted by all of them. So Jazakallah khair, sisters. Here is a quick reminder of this week's competition question.